Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery. I'm Zara Altair. This is where you learn to make a good mystery great. And today I want to talk about getting unpredictable with your scenes and how to do it. First, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon for their support. And if you're enjoying these videos, I'd love to have you join us with special reports from me about writing. There's a link in the description below. All right, so get unpredictable with your scenes. Your scenes need a twist. And you have several hundred pages to keep your reader's interest, and you do it scene by scene. Scenes are the building blocks of your story, and if you want your reader to keep going, each scene needs a bit of a surprise. If you want your scene to be gripping, then you need a setup that gives the reader a big surprise. And large or small, you build tension in your story at the scene level. Build anticipation in each scene by changing the emotional status and the point of view character from the beginning to the end. And we've talked about that before. And at crucial points in the story, you need big surprises, raising a big question for the reader. How will she get out of this? Techniques for gripping scenes. So let's talk about this a little more. You may have many ways of doing this and many techniques at your disposal to raise tension in your scene. And first, let's talk about what you can do as your story progresses. So in the beginning, you want to open with a scene that can be dramatic in several ways. The scene can be significant, a major disaster. The scene can involve a potentially disastrous conflict between your point of view character and the most potent opposition, and the latter is more effective. You can also open with a scene that could be small, a simple yet potentially surprising change of the status quo. But you want something happening right there at the beginning, and you want to pique your reader's interest so they'll keep reading for the rest of the story. So that simple scene at the beginning with changing the status quo is effective because it focuses the reader's mind on the question, what will happen next? Okay, lots of things happen in the middle. So here's some ways to work with scenes in the middle. In the middle, your story comprises scenes that intensify the conflict between your protagonist and the opposition. And you build this conflict by raising and lowering the tension in each scene. It does not differ from scenes in a play or a movie. When you raise the pressure by increasing the peril facing your hero, and each scene heightens the conflict by raising the stakes of the contest, making the opposition more powerful, and using a technique called raising the stakes. So you give your opponent an advantage that makes it harder for your hero. So here are some ways that you can raise the stakes. Have the opposition grow more robust as time goes on. Make the opposition more clever. Give your opposition access to better resources. And give your opposition access to a powerful ally. All of these work really well in a mystery. All right, and then your end. And the end of your story is the scene where your hero triumphs over the opposition. And many writers pull their punches here at the end, and the hero gets what she wants, but almost by default. And you don't want it to feel like default. The end should be an explosion of tension where you lay out the scene. And so you can intensify this conflict in several ways. You can add a second powerful opposing character for your hero to contend with. You can add a secondary character who influences the protagonist. You can add a secondary character who contributes to the protagonist's lack of control over things. You know, mix it up. You want to make it a conflict. You really don't want it to feel like a default. So there are a couple of ways you can end your story with a twist solution or with a twist disaster. So a twist solution, this is an ideal ending because it surprises your reader in the best possible way for a story. Right at the end, there's that last final twist in your story. And then the twist disaster is an alternate ending for your story, but not your ideal conclusion. It can be powerful to create doubt in your reader's mind about the seemingly inevitable end. So we're raising doubt right here at the end. We're raising some doubt. Which ending you choose depends on how you start your story. If you start your story with a dramatic scene in either of the two ways above, then your twist solution ending is the ideal ending for your story. So now I want to talk a little bit about how you can ratchet up those scenes so they don't feel so predictable. One is to contrast the setting and the action. So just pick an example, like in your subplot you have a love scene, and so instead of the traditional moonlit night by the romantic beach or mountain or flower-filled meadow, whatever it is, put your duo in an unusual setting. Think of a dark basement where, you know, that one where the heroine should never go, or on a commute train crammed with passengers, and see what that does to ratchet up what might be a traditional love scene. All right, just let your imagination play with ideas. Okay, and then another is, especially in conflict scenes, when there's a threat and say your antagonist is more potent and larger than your protagonist, you focus on the details of that threat rather than stressing his big size. So something like, do his feet sink into the soft earth as he walks? Because it's the small details that provoke your reader's emotion. Just saying this guy is big isn't as threatening as saying, you know, as he approached, his feet sank into the ground because of his weight. So add those details that connect your reader with the threat. Okay, and then another way is when just make things not what they seem. And these are very dramatic. And whenever you set up a certain expectation, you give the reader something other than what they expect. And that is the nature of how dramatic writing works. Omit details and use subtext to infer what lies below the surface. So think of how you write your overall story with setup and then a payoff, but bring it down to the scene level. So set up your scene with an omission and keep it going with a secret and deliver a surprise. Surprise is more than just setting up a certain expectation and then subverting it. It is also about leaving out information. Whenever you purposely leave out important information, it acts as a story secret. And you can do this in almost every scene by simply cutting away from the scene before you give the information. And now that the information is a secret, it becomes an easy tool for creating surprises later. And as you build your story scene by scene, you reveal that hidden information later in the story. So creating tension and interest in your mystery involves your reader and keeps them turning those pages. And when you set up the reader for an expectation and have kept the information secret, all that's left to do is to turn the scene where you least expect it to go. So just where you least expect it to go. Think of that. Okay, I want to once again thank Audible for sponsoring Write a Killer Mystery. And I right now am listening to a mystery, Anne Perry's Death with Under the Double Edge, on Audible. It's just a great way to consume stories. And if you'd like a 30-day free trial, there's a link in the description and below. I think it's a great way for writers to consume story and think about story. One of the things I like about Audible is when something happens, like, or maybe I'm thinking about surprises and scenes, and something happens in a scene, I just pause the story and I think about what the author has done to make that happen. It's, writers have a special way of reading or listening to stories about how did they do that, how did they do that, and I think Audible is a great tool for that. So if you haven't tried listening to stories, just click that link and give yourself a new experience. All right, thank you. That's it for today, and I will see you next week. Meanwhile, keep writing.